I was one of those kids that I sat by my radios and I had the boom box with the two. It was a 2 cassette player because that was how much I loved music.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember just sitting by my radio every night it was the top 9 at 9. So it was actually Z104 in Virginia Beach or Norfolk. Well, it's in Virginia Beach, but it's Intercom Norfolk. Well, now it's Odyssey Norfolk. Anyway, that whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's so Z104, which is WNVZ, which I actually is where I got my first commercial radio job, but we'll get to that point. But yeah, I grew up listening to that station and they did a top 9 at 9 and I would sit by my radio and if a song came on that I liked, I would press record. And I just remember having all these, it ended up being like the same song over and over because you'd only get like half of it. And then you'd
it's good enough for now.
Right, exactly. Until the next time. Oh, got it at the beginning.
Yeah.
And I remember like calling into my radio station and like requesting songs and then being like, and I didn't realize then like I guess the smoke and mirrors that radio is, because I remember calling in to request a song and they were like, okay, yeah, we'll see if we can get that on the top 9 at 9. But can you say that you want to hear this song instead? As a kid, it didn't even faze me really. At that point, it was just like, oh, I'm going to be on the radio. Like, that sounds fun. So I did that a lot. And then I remember me and one of my childhood friends, she had a tape recorder and we used to record these talk show like programs where like it was kind of like we were like on Maury or Jerry Springer, but it was audio form. And we would take a quick break and then we would throw out these accents and do these like ridiculous commercials. Like I remember we did one for Irish Coffee Brew, which I don't know why that came about or what it was. But so listening back to it, it was actually pretty hilarious because we did these segments and then we did these commercials in between and all of that. And as I mentioned, big fan of music, thought I was going to be a rock star, did chorus and theater throughout high school. And then when I got to college, is kind of when things opened up a bit for me. You know, your first weekend as a freshman, they have all the clubs out in the quad and you get to go to all the tables and talk to them. And we had a radio club, WVRU. I went to Radford University in here in Virginia. And I thought, oh, well, I like music and that'd be really cool to be able to have my own like radio show and play whatever I want to play. And so I signed up to join this radio club. And that's pretty much where everything just kind of started for me. From there, I learned, they taught us how to basically, you know, pot up and pot out, like everything from records to cassettes to DATs. And it was right around that time where everything was, at least, I don't know what it was like in the college radio world, but or in the commercial radio world, but in the college radio world, it was right around that time that they were transitioning from CDs to digital. That was right around the time that the iPod had came out. So that was a whole new thing where we could connect our iPods to the system and play that over the air. So from there, I learned, I was music director for a little bit there. So I learned how the charting system kind of works and how.
Did you really enjoy that since you like the music side, or?
I did. I discovered so much music because in addition to like, so if you had if you were a student worker, they would let you have an hour show once a week. So you could play whatever you wanted. And that was really cool. But you also had to board up some other hours in the week to make up for it. And so they had me doing like some jazz show in the middle of the day, but I actually like found a lot of jazz artists. I was like, oh, this actually isn't bad. Like, I like this.
Yeah.
And they had me, my show that was on at nights, they had me sandwiched in between. Actually, no. So I was first at 9. And then at 10, there was a show called Hood Metal, which was basically like, so I played a lot of indie music on my show. And then you had Hood Metal, which was like a mix of like indie and rap and metal. And then there was a guy that like ended the block that was just straight metal. So it was like a nice little transition. And my friends would listen, which was always fun. And then there was a prison that wasn't too far from there that they would write us letters saying that they enjoyed listening. I went to school for media studies production. So I went to school to do like camera work for news. But obviously there was a little bit of the radio mixed in that, because part of learning to put together news packages was also learning to put together like NPR style packages as well. So got to delve in it a little bit there. But then when I graduated, it was right around 2008. So it was right around the first recession. I moved back in with my parents after college, and I was kind of like, okay, well, what can I do? My thought was always, if I'm going to be paying off my student loans for the rest of my life, then I want to be doing something that I enjoy and not just doing something to make money. So I got a part-time job at the liquor store, which right out of college, not a bad job at all. So I was doing that part-time, and then I was like, okay, what else can I do? And so I knew I could do TV and I knew I could do radio because of the radio club. So I applied for a part-time job at a news station, and I applied for a part-time job at a radio station. But I ended up getting a email from the OM at Intercom at the time. And he said, hey, I listened to your demo, and I think that these are a couple of stations that we have in the building that you might be good for. So I'll send your stuff to these PDs and you can reach out to them. Maybe he did think that something sounded good, or maybe he thought that, he'd pass me along to the PDs and they'd be like, whatever. But I ended up reaching out to them, and one was a CHR station. The other was a hot AC station. And the PD for the CHR station, which Z104, coming back full circle there, was Tia Schuster, which I believe he is working for iHeart somewhere up in New York right now. But he actually reached back out to me and was like, hey, I do like your sound, would love to meet you at some point. But the Jonas Brothers were in town that day or something that I emailed him. So it was like a really big deal. And he's like, so, once all these summer concerts are kind of, out of the way, like, let's meet up. I waited a little bit. And then I think like a week later, like emailed back and was like, hey, like, would love to meet you. And didn't really hear anything. And, now that I'm, 10 years into my, full-time radio career, like I understand that PDs have a lot of stuff going on, especially in a top 50 market. But I was like, I'm not gonna let this just kind of slip away. Like, this is something I'd really like to do. And so I got his extension number and ended up calling him every day for a month.
Did you answer, or did you leave voicemails?
I left voicemails. Okay. And so I guess at one point he finally checked his voicemails, and he just had a ton from me. And so one day he called me back and he was like, you're persistent, so I want to meet you. Like, let's set up a time to come in. And so that's where it started. I met with him, and he's like, all right, let's get you on overnights. Let's start you there. And so I did overnights on Z104, the station that I grew up listening to.
Was that like a really cool feeling once you were like in there?
It was pretty wild, because I'd grown up there and like born and raised, and the radio station actually ended up being literally 3 minutes down the road from my parents' house.
Oh, and you didn't know that?
No, I had no clue at all. It was like literally down the street from me my entire life, and I didn't know. And so, so being in there, that was really cool. And even then, it was just me doing something that sounded fun at the time until I could find whatever it was that I wanted to do. I didn't still even then think that I was going to have a career in radio, or it wasn't even really a thought to me. But the more I did that, the more I loved it and wanted to be around it. Again, being in a top 50 market, like when they had concerts coming through, they had artists in the building. They were doing meet and greets, and I was missing out on those working part-time for the liquor store. And I wasn't really happy at the liquor store, but I was a good worker. And the liquor store actually wanted me to, they were like, oh, like you should consider being a manager. And I was like, no, because what happens is I'm in my early 20s, I'm going to get used to the money, and then I'm going to be stuck in this situation. And so I mentioned to Tias, I was like, I'm doing this part-time and it's not really what I want to do. I would love to do more here, but obviously, I can't because there's only so many, there were several other part-timers too that had overnight shifts, and which was something really awesome that they were doing at the time. And he was like, well, I think promotions needs some help. You could always get some extra hours there too. So I talked to the promotions department and they were like, yeah, like let's throw you in as, part-time promotions as well. You can help out, learn some more, because obviously, promotions they're going and setting up everything for the talent to show up and do their live broadcast and everything. And so I ended up quitting the liquor store and going to work for the radio. How many times did I say liquor store? Make it a drinking game.
Right.
But yeah, so I quit there and was like, all right, well, look, I don't have anything else now. I'm living with my parents. So I'm all in, throw me into whatever. And so I was doing overnights. I was doing promotions during the week, and during the weekends. Like there were some days where I was getting off the air at 6 a.m. and going and taking a 2-hour nap and then getting back up to do something promotions wise. And so I was like, whatever you guys want me to do, I'll do. There was a while there where one of the people in the traffic department actually had a surgery where she had to be out for 2 months. And so they were like, hey, Brandy's really reliable. Like, why don't you use her for 2 months? And like they were very gracious in throwing me into whatever they could to get me as many hours as they could because they enjoyed me being there. They knew I loved it. And I basically got to do everything except for sales, which when it came down to it was the only way I was going to stay there. Because they were like, when nothing was going to open up, they were like, well, what about sales? Because, they want to keep you, but there's nothing there. And the ratings were good. So, no one was going to get fired. No one was going to quit. And there's that whole idea of, okay, well, if you want to work in a bigger market, you got to go somewhere else and put your 3 or 5 years in and kind of work your way up. And it was getting to that point where I was kind of like, I'd worked there part-time for about 2.5 years. And I was like, all right, I can't keep, I'm still living with my parents now. I can't keep doing this. It's time to do something else. And so I gave myself a goal. I said, if you don't find anything by the end of the year, then it's time to just suck it up and do some kind of 9-to-5, whatever job, just so that you can have some kind of financial stability. And that was around the time that there was a midday opening here in Harrisonburg for WQPO, Q101, which is where I work now. And so I applied for it. And in October of 2011, they called me in for an interview. And then that's where I'm at. I did not expect to be here this long. It was kind of that mindset of, all right, I'll go in, I'll do my 3, 5, whatever years I got to do and get some more experience. And little did I know that it was going to be 10 years of a lot of experience.
You must be happy then.
Yeah. So it's been definitely an adventure. 10 years anywhere for sure.
Yeah.
I definitely had that mindset of I wanted to be like, I wanted to get back to Virginia Beach. I wanted to be in a bigger market. Even if it wasn't Virginia Beach, I wanted to move up. And I think my idea of what that is has changed, but also so much in radio has changed as well to where I'm I guess comfortable right now. I started in middays here. I'm now doing mornings. So there's been so much transition. I've learned so much. I always throw it out there, and I know it's so cliche and people say it all the time, but the whole, everything happens for a reason. There were times where I was frustrated with where I was at, and, well, I'm seeing this person do this and this person's doing that. And, why am I not getting this? But I like to think everything happens for a reason, and there's some reason that I'm still here. I've learned a lot since I've been here. So the story is that I started out doing middays and really had no experience outside of, doing overnights. And people come and go. We're like market 240 something.
Okay.
It changes all the time.
Yeah.
It's what you consider a feeder market, you know, like people, they come here to start out and gain some experience, but also too, this is a place where some people come to like, all right, well, I want to keep doing radio, but this is where I'm gonna end it. This is where I'm gonna stay at. And we've got a good mix of that in our building. At the time, I was working for a company called Verstantic Broadcasting. A lot of things have changed since then. The company got bought out. We're now Harrisonburg Radio Group, but we're owned by Saga Communications. I've gone from doing middays to I did mornings for like a year. Then Saga bought us out. And with those changes, they were kind of like, well, hey, how do you feel about afternoons? Which is actually where I would love to be. I'm a night owl. And so being able to not set an alarm and kind of wake up on my own and then get up and do my job and then do the afternoon shift, for me, that was awesome. I did that for about 2.5, 3 years, and absolutely my ideal time slot. But I was kind of getting to that point of what's next. Like I kind of felt like I've got this down. What's next? And I started to get an itch for more. So I applied to some other places, and it always came down to kind of going back to what I was talking about when I got out of college and applied to the news station. It always came down to me and a few other people. And it always ended up being someone else that got that job, which, you know, the best person for the job is who it should be. And some of those people that have gotten those jobs are people that I know that, you know, I've either worked with or were colleagues in some way. And so super happy for them. And they all seem to be flourishing where they're at. But I kept wondering what is it? Like, why isn't anything happening? And since then, I have gone from being just an on-air personality to I'm now a music director for the station. I am now PD for the station, which was never really, never at all a goal of mine. I never really wanted to be a PD or be in charge of people, but I just, after being with the station for so long, I just cared about it so much that it kind of became a thing of, well, what can I do to make the station better? And then they were kind of like, well, hey, you're already doing this, so why don't we just go ahead and give you the title of it? And so, you know, this isn't the place that I thought I was going to be at for a very long time, but I've learned so much in 10 years and I can put that on my resume. And I'm, you know, especially after this past, 20 months of COVID and, you know, seeing, you know, some of, you know, our family members, you know, losing their jobs and kind of wondering where radio is going. I'm very fortunate to be where I'm at and very, very thankful to work with the people that I work with. I mean, you know, we were talking about the fact that my company, they put aside money to send us to boot camp.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And as you mentioned, you know, some companies don't want to do that because they're afraid that that's going to be the thing that leads their talent away. And I'm very fortunate to be working for a GM right now. I've had in the 10 years I've been here, I've had 3 GMs. Okay. And the GM I work for now actually started as an intern for the company years ago. So she's worked her way up. But one of the things she always tells us is, you know, like, I want to make you better, but at the same time, I want you to be happy. And if I'm making you better to go somewhere else, then so be it. But like you said, too, if you continue to make your employees happy, then do they want to go anywhere? And right now, you know, like it's everyone, there's so few openings in radio. Everyone's trying to get them. So it's nice to know that I'm wanted here and that it's definitely, you know, I mean, again, 10 years here, like, yeah, I'm not taking that lightly at all. It's been a blast and it's been fun. And I'm glad to say that I have been here for 10 years. I know that is as a radio job and as my first full-time job. Yeah. I know that's pretty crazy. So I'm not taking it for granted at all.
So do you like the show aspect of it? So you said that you know, the ideal time slot is in the afternoon. Would you like a solo thing, or do you like the idea of like a show and would like to actually do like a morning show, but in the afternoon?
A morning show in the afternoon. That'd be great. Yeah. Cause I think I'd be so much more like relaxed and
Yeah.
and loose. Like I enjoy, the only part of the morning show that I hate is the getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning.
I do like the idea of like an afternoon show. Like and even at night too, because we are talking about that with other people, like all the people that went to work, I mean, they still have to drive home too, and just now with everything being so different, people do have weird work schedules. Not everybody works a 9 to 5, and it's nice to have those shows. I hope, and I would like to see more of radio do that, because I think that there's just opportunity there,
Yeah, like you said, like with people driving home, like we actually, it's amazing how there's a lot of plants around here. So a lot of the time we're talking to people like, oh, like you're getting ready for your day, and we've got a lot of people that are calling in. They're like, actually, I'm about to go home and go to bed. You're who I listen to on my way from work. And so it's that same concept. I mean, we've got people that are listening while they're driving their kids to school. Well, they've got to drive their kids from school. So what is there then?
And not that I think like everywhere should have live nights, but I do think that there's more opportunity for, more like night syndicated shows or stuff like that, or, like the interactive stuff that you can do on Twitch or social media now.
And I think that's where radio is doing a disservice and I know a lot of it has to do with not having the on-air talent, which is a whole another story. And if your company chose to do that, then that's whatever. But I wouldn't be here talking to you right now if someone hadn't taken a chance on me to do overnights.
Yeah.
And there isn't really a whole lot of that anymore. So why aren't we? I mean, honestly, I guess they don't need to do overnights, because they can just do a podcast or they can do Twitch themselves. But there are still people out there that want to be in radio and have a love for it. And so why aren't we catering to them to move in that next generation? Because then otherwise we are going to be finding our next generation from podcast and video cast and Twitch.
I'm surprised when I still see like young people, like these colleges that, there's still young kids going to these radio schools and they're interested in it. I'm like, wow, it's some I've just assumed, like, do they even know what radio is,
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing too, like, because it's actually funny. We've done surveys before where we've asked people like, well, how do you listen to us? And we've actually seen a lot of our uptick has been in smart speakers.
Oh, okay.
But they don't think of that as radio because of the fact that like it's radio, but they don't think of it as radio because it's not coming out of a radio.
Yeah, I know. I've been wondering that, like what kids call it now, because I just with any kind of audio like that, I'm like, I'm listening to the radio, right? But then yeah, like if I'm listening to Spotify or like any of those things, like what is that? So I'm like wondering what's the new like term that kids are like, I'm listening to blank, like what, like I'm listening to music audio, like what's the new word for it? So then obviously of your music side, were those kind of pretty separate, or like did you ever kind of like mesh that with the radio side too? Like was there ever any?
So I'm going to answer this in two different ways because I guess it means two different things.
Okay.
The closest I've ever gotten to using the music I enjoy listening to like throw out to other people has been college radio. When I got into commercial radio and top 40, obviously that's when I kind of realized that, okay, well, I'm going to be hearing these songs all the time. So it is what it is. And so in that aspect, no, although it's been really cool to kind of go to people and say like, hey, like, I'm a really big fan of this person. Like, can you hook that up? One of the reasons I picked up guitar was because of Michelle Branch. I was a big fan of her growing up. And so I remember years later, because when I worked for Intercom Norfolk, they had 4 different stations, R&B, Hot AC, and then CHR. And so Michelle Branch actually came through for the Hot AC. And so I actually got to meet her and talk to her and do the whole meet and greet thing. And that was fun. That was also part of the promotions part of it, which was awesome. Whereas with my actual like playing music, I try to keep those separate. Even when I go to play somewhere, I try to not throw out the fact that I work for a radio station. Okay. I've been here long enough, and I think my voice is familiar enough now that I don't have to say it. People just kind of like, I've gotten that before, like, hey, like, are you on the radio? Because your voice sounds really familiar. Yeah. But again, that's also where I've been fortunate, because I've actually had some of our account execs that have gone out to clients that have breweries or vineyards, and they're like, hey, just so you know, one of our on-air people, she plays, she's really good. Maybe you should consider her. And so again, it's that aspect of they don't care that they're using this clout to help me get this, because it's just another thing that helps everyone's situation. You know, it helps their clients because they need music, but then also it helps me because I'm trying to play out, and it's just it's mutually beneficial for everyone, and it's just another way to keep me happy, I guess. So
yeah, I love that. That's such a perfect example, because like I feel like more people, because I mean a lot of people in radio are creative, so I'm learning that a lot of people have something outside of whether they make crafts, whether they play music, they all kind of do something. And it's just amazing how you can take those talents and, like you said, use them for the sales team. And that's just like another thing that, you know, makes you, more brandable, more you, that again makes the people just more sellable. And so I was like, gosh, if it was me, I'd be like talking to everybody and be like, what do you know how to do? So that's why lots of times, like I ask in like those meet the fan things, like, you know, what are your skills and what are your hobbies? And because it's just interesting. Sometimes people don't even realize how their hobbies can fall into radio, you know?
Absolutely. And that's, I think I read somewhere like where you want people around you that have different strengths, because if everyone has the same strength, then it's not going to work out. And so I think that's been, you know, like with myself and Nick in the morning show, like he's really into, and I know you talked to him, he's really into like Halloween and movies and all of that stuff. And so Halloween time, we absolutely like take advantage of that. And we're like, all right, well, look, here's the deal. We're going to send you here and you're going to scream like a little girl, but it's going to be okay, because that's what you like to do. And we're going to use this to just add something else to the radio.
Your guys' place seems very good and low key, I guess, from the drama compared to some other places. Like I know there's drama and crap, you know, that goes on like everywhere, but like it seems like, you know, some of the stuff that they're thinking through, you know, like about like those extra sales pieces, or just like, you know, like the fact that you said there's so many live people there, and that's surprising too, with it being like a small market.
Yeah. I mean, that's something that, you know, Saga prides themselves in, is, you know, the live and local. And we actually Saga has 3 different clusters here in Virginia. So actually where I'm from in Virginia Beach, there's actually some stations there that are owned by Saga. And so that's kind of cool they used to be the competition, but now they're friends too. But yeah, just very, very lucky. You know, every radio station wants to preach that they're live and local, but we really are. And I think that, again, going back to these younger kids that are still into radio, I think that's what it is. I think it's when you have these radio stations where they've grown up listening to them and they know that the person they're listening to is actually there. One of our biggest fans on the morning show is this kid named Braylon. And we do like a trivia question every morning. And so, you know, the rules are you can call in, but you got to have mom or dad take the phone after you win. And so this kid, like, he knows that he can only win every 30 days. After he's won, he's like, all right, we're going to listen, but I'll call you in a month. And, but when we do live broadcast there's a football team here that's pretty big, JMU's football team. And so we do live broadcast at all their tailgates. And so this kid, no fail, they come to every game and he stops by the tent and he says hi. And it's events like that too, where we have a lot of people come out like every game and they stop by the table and they want to win something, even though they've already got like 3 other shirts. They want another one. So those are fun. Like that's the part that I really enjoy. And I think that's what makes this market special. And I think that's kind of where before I wanted to get to a bigger market. And now I'm kind of just like, I feel like if you're making a difference and you're connecting with the community, then what does it matter where you're at? I couldn't do anywhere smaller just because of just from growing up in a bigger city. This was already smaller than I ever thought I'd live in. So I could never do smaller just for that reason, not because there's anything wrong with those places, but just I can't. But definitely there's something to be said about these smaller communities. It's not all big market. And especially now you're learning too with these, you know, these other companies that there won't always be a spot for on air in these bigger markets. And so if radio is what you want to do, you can make it work. It's just a matter of finding the right spot for you. And this has been a pretty good spot for me. When I got this job here, And again, everyone at Intercom Norfolk was super supportive, and they were, all gave me well wishes, and kind of all gave me their advice, because they were all veterans. And a couple of things that I was told was, one, make sure you shake every hand and kiss every baby. Two, I had someone say to me that you are going to go so much farther leaving and maybe coming back than someone that has gotten fortunate enough to have stayed in one market their entire life. And I don't think that's a knock on anyone that has been fortunate enough to stay in a market. Because I mean, I know people that have been in the same market for 20 plus years, and kudos to you, because I would love to be there. Who knows? I might be. I'm 10 years away. But there is definitely I don't know, there's something about going and doing something completely, I guess, unknown, and trying to figure out what your space or your place is in that. I never saw myself as being a PD. I never saw myself as doing mornings. And that all kind of came from just taking a chance and doing something different. And
no, because your situation, is pretty good, and you seem to like the company and have been doing is that kind of like, do you want to nurture that like within the company, or are you interested in like continuing to move like other places, or are you just kind of like?
I would like to get to a bigger market, because I mean that's what I originally set out to do. Now, does it have to be a top 50 market? No. But there's just some other things that I'd like to accomplish. I mean, I could see myself being here a little bit longer, but then there's that mindset of what is next. Because in our building, I don't feel like there's really another format that kind of fits. I'm on a CHR now, and our other formats are our big formats are classic country and news talk. And while I think it'd be hilarious if I like stayed here forever and ended up on the news talk station, I don't know if that's exactly the route I want to go, but I've actually just kind of been looking into more about what I can do now outside of work to better prepare myself for whatever comes next. So that's kind of why I got back into playing music. I'm actually about to start a podcast here soon.
Okay.
So that's something I'm looking forward to. And
I'm always excited when people say they're doing these things. So
it was actually something that I've been wanting to do for a while, and I've actually recorded a few of them. But I just couldn't figure out where I wanted to go, because I am a very unfiltered person. You're getting filtered right now. And I had some friends listen to it, because I was like, they're going to give me, the real deal. And they're like, oh, this is great. But it was like really raunchy. And like, my mom is a super fan. I'm an only child. Like, everything I do, she loves.
Course. And
like my grandparents, like they use their smart speakers, which my grandparents have a smart speaker. They use their smart speaker to listen to, like, they stream the show, like, so they listen to my morning show, like from Virginia Beach. So that was my thought was, well, I can't share this, because then like my mom's gonna see it and I don't need her to know like how raunchy I am. And so then I did another one that like wasn't even like nearly, so like I was trying to find that balance. And I actually had so again, going back into radio, I actually had one of our old account execs, doesn't work for us anymore. He's doing his own thing now, but he actually reached out to me and was like, hey, looking at doing some podcasting and would love to get you on board. Really like what you do. And so I was like, well, this is actually going to be the fire that kind of lights my ass, basically, because I've been wanting to do this. And so I need to do it. And so, so that's something else I'm looking forward to in the new year.
So fun. I love hearing everybody's radio stories, because they're so unique, and I love like the passion when people are like talking through them, and like some people like are kind of like closed about it at first, but like, and I'm like, no, keep talking, tell me all this stuff. Because it's just, I think we all just have this like, love for this special thing. So it's cool to watch other people light up about it too,
Yeah, it is not if people think that radio it's like, oh, I'll just go on air and I'll talk for a few hours and it's that. And it's not an easy thing at all. I mean, it's fun and it can be easy, but it's also time consuming and it's a lot of hard work.